The Suit of Many Pockets. Part 1. The Sunday Dinner. The scent of garlic and rosemary always announced Sunday at Nona Rosa's house before the faded blue clapboard even came into view. For Leo, age 9, the smell was the very definition of family. It meant his mother, Sophia, was already inside, kneading dough for the ciabatta that would sop up Nona's legendary gravy. It meant his teenage sister, Chiara, was rolling her eyes but secretly texting her friends photos of the antique lace tablecloth. And it meant his father, Marco, was in the small, sun-dappled garden, listening intently as his own father, Salvatore, explained for the 1,000th time the exact moment a tomato was ripe for picking. Leo pushed open the screen door, its familiar squeak a secondary announcement. The air inside was thick with warmth, conversation, and the simmering of 3 generations of history in a pot. Nona, her silver hair in a neat bun, stirred the gravy with a wooden spoon that had seen more Sundays than Leo had seen days. She turned, her face a map of kind wrinkles. "There's my Leo! You grew again! Come, taste!" She held out the spoon. Leo took a careful sip, the rich, tangy tomato sauce bursting on his tongue. "Perfect, Nona." "It needs a pinch more salt," she declared, adding 2. "Always a pinch more salt." This was the kingdom. Not grand, not luxurious, but fiercely defended and deeply loved. Marco was a bookkeeper for several small local businesses. Sophia was a part-time librarian. Money was a careful, quiet guest in their home, discussed in hushed tones over balanced checkbooks. Clothes were handed down, cars were driven until they wheezed their last, and a splurge was a new packet of seeds for Nona's garden. Their wealth was measured in full bellies, loud arguments over board games, and the unshakable knowledge that the net of family would always catch you. The following Sunday, however, a chill entered the warm kitchen. Marco arrived later than usual, his face unreadable. He carried a garment bag, which he hung carefully on the back of the pantry door, an anomaly. "What's in the bag, Papa?" Marco forced a smile. "A suit, Leo. I have a very important meeting tomorrow." Sophia paused, her flour-dusted hands hovering over the dough. "With the Kavanaghs?" A nod. The Kavanaghs of Kavanagh and Sons Fine Furnishings. They were local aristocracy. Their showroom downtown was a temple of mahogany and velvet, a world away from the IKEA flat packs and thrift store finds that furnished Leo's world. Marco had been doing their books for years, quietly saving them thousands with his meticulous, unsung work. Now he'd been invited to a formal meeting with Old Man Kavanagh and his sons, Robert and James. "It's about the future of the account, maybe even a partnership role," Marco said, trying to sound casual. "Partnership," Nona Salvatore grunted from his chair by the radio. "With those gente superba, they see a man's heart through his wallet, not his work." "Papa, please," Sophia said softly, but her eyes were on Marco, shining with a hope she couldn't suppress. A partnership would mean breathing room. It would mean fixing the car's transmission without a week of spaghetti dinners to balance the budget. It would be validation. Marco unzipped the bag. Inside was a suit, a somber charcoal gray. It was clean, pressed, but undeniably dated. The lapels were a touch too wide, the cut unmistakably from another era. It smelled faintly of cedar and mothballs, not a department store. "It's from Second Glance," Marco said, referring to the thrift store on Maple, where Sophia found his winter coats. "Mr. Henderson tailored it for me. For $20, he took it in perfectly." It was a beautiful piece of thrift. For this family, it was a suit of armor, assembled with care and frugal pride. Marco looked at Sophia. "How do I look?" She walked over, smoothed a barely there wrinkle on his shoulder, and kissed his cheek. "You look like the smartest man in any room." Part 2. The Laughter. The Kavanagh and Sons building felt like a cathedral to a god Leo's family didn't worship. Marco, in his thrift store suit, walked in with his head high, carrying a decade of ledger knowledge in his briefcase. He was shown to a conference room that overlooked the river, a view he'd never seen from the basement office where he usually worked. Robert and James Kavanagh were already there, flanking their father, Alistair. They were in suits that cost more than Marco's car. Their shoes shined like dark mirrors. Robert, the elder, with a face like a bored hawk, looked all over Marco as he entered. A flicker of something, amusement, disdain, passed between the brothers. The meeting began politely. Alistair, an old man with cold eyes, thanked Marco for his years of adequate service. They discussed numbers, projections. Marco, emboldened, spoke up. He suggested a new digital inventory system, a shift in their supplier contracts. He had spreadsheets, projections. He spoke not as an employee, but as someone who understood the business's bones, its hidden arteries and weak joints. He was in the middle of explaining a cost analysis when James, the Kavanagh's younger, louder son, let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a laugh of joy, but of derision. "Sorry, Marco," James said, not sounding sorry at all. He leaned forward, pointing a manicured finger. "It's just, that suit. What is that, a 70s cut? You come in here talking about our future, looking like you're headed to a funeral for disco." Robert smirked, covering his mouth with a hand. Old man Alistair simply watched, a faint, cold smile on his lips. The air left the room. Marco's careful words died in his throat. He felt the fine wool of the suit, which had felt like strength that morning, become a costume of poverty. They weren't listening to his ideas, they were staring at his lapels. Mr. Henderson did a good job with the alterations," Marco said, his voice quieter. "Mr. Henderson," Robert chuckled. "Let me guess, a friend with a sewing machine? Look, Marco, we appreciate the earnestness, really, but Kavanagh and Sons is about image, legacy, perception. We can't have a partner who looks like he shops at the Salvation Army." The word partner hung in the air, now twisted and cruel. The meeting ended shortly after. The offer, of course, never came. Just a pat on the back, "We'll keep you on the books, of course," and the searing, silent walk past the gleaming showroom floor. Marco drove home, the sting of their laughter ringing louder than the engine's knock. He didn't go straight to Nona's. He went home first, took off the suit, and hung it back in the garment bag. He looked at it for a long time. It wasn't just a suit, it was his father's careful gardening, his mother's saved pennies, his wife's proud smile. It was the pinch of salt in the gravy, and they had laughed at it. When he finally arrived at Sunday dinner, he didn't need to speak. The defeat was a cloak around his shoulders. Sophia saw it first. She put down her spoon, walked over, and simply put her arms around him. No questions. Nonno Salvatore muttered something fierce in Italian. Nonna crossed herself. Over a meal that tasted of ashes, Marco told them. He downplayed the laughter, but Leo, watching from his seat, saw a flinch in his father's eyes. "They're fools," Salvatore finally growled. "A tree with rotten roots cares only for the shine of its leaves. It will fall." But Leo saw something else settle on his father's face. Not just hurt, but a hard, quiet resolve. It was the same look Nonno got when a stubborn weed invaded his tomato patch, a patient, determined look. The laughter hadn't broken Marco, it had planted a seed. Part 3. The Windfall and the Watch. The seed lay dormant for a year. Life continued in its humble, beautiful rhythm. Sunday dinners, school plays, saving for a new water heater. Marco still did the Kavanagh's books, the interaction now strictly digital, coldly professional. He watched as their business, propped up by reputation and vanity, began to falter. Their costs ballooned, their inventory grew stale. Robert and James spent more on marketing retreats than on their craftsmen's wages. The numbers told a story of a dying empire. Then, the windfall. It wasn't a lottery ticket or a crypto miracle. It was Nonno Salvatore, the quiet gardener, the man who spoke more to his zucchini than to strangers. He passed away peacefully one spring morning among his seedlings. In the aftermath of grief, as they sorted through his modest possessions, they found the deed to his 2-acre plot of land everyone assumed was just rented, and they found a letter from a law firm. A large development company expanding the town's perimeter had been eyeing that land for months. Salvatore, the simple immigrant gardener, had held out, quietly, patiently. The offer he finally accepted just before he died was life-changing. The family sat, stunned, in Nona's kitchen. The number on the paper was more zeros than they had ever dreamed of touching. Robert Kavanaugh's voice echoed in Marco's memory. "We can't have a partner who looks like he shops at the Salvation Army." Marco looked at Sophia, then at his mother, then at Leo and Chiara. "We pay off the mortgage. We set up trusts for education. We take care of Nona." They all nodded. Then Marco's gaze hardened. "And then, I want to buy Kavanagh and Sons." Silence. "Figlio mio," Nona said, her voice soft. "Is this for revenge? That is a bitter sauce. It ruins the meal." Marco took her hand. "No, Mama, it's not revenge. It's justice, but not the shouting kind, the quiet kind." He explained. The business was failing. The Kavanaghs were bleeding it dry with their arrogance. The craftsmen, the delivery men, the sales staff, people like them, were going to lose their jobs. The legacy, the real legacy of skilled work, was dying. Nono Salvatore's land can save it, not as Kavanagh's, as something new, something honest. It was a strategic pivot, born not from sudden greed, but from long, simmering knowledge. Marco had the blueprints to their failure in his files. He knew every leak, every weak joist. The next phase was conducted in shadow. Marco, using an intermediary, a sharp, discreet lawyer who didn't judge suits, began making offers for the struggling Kavanagh and Sons. The Kavanaghs, desperate but proud, rebuffed the anonymous buyer at first, but as months passed and creditors circled, their resistance crumbled. They assumed it was a faceless conglomerate, which soothed their egos. Selling to a giant was one thing, selling to their former bookkeeper was unthinkable. Part 4. The Unveiling. The deal was signed in the same Riverview conference room. The Kavanaghs, Alistair frail now, Robert and James nervous, were there to hand over their legacy. Their lawyer explained the final details, then said, "The principal will be here shortly to take possession." The door opened. Marco walked in. He was not wearing the thrift store suit. He wore a simple, well-cut, modern navy suit from a mid-range department store. It was respectable, professional, but not ostentatious. Beside him was Sophia, in a graceful blue dress, and Leo, holding his mother's hand, his best shirt neatly pressed. For a moment, there was no recognition. Then James's eyes widened. Robert's mouth fell open. Alistair Kavanagh's pale face went slack with confusion. "Marco?" Robert sputtered. "What is this? The final paperwork is here." "I know," Marco said, his voice calm, steady. He walked to the head of the table. "I am the principal. The Bellini family is the new owner of Kavanagh and Sons." The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant hum of traffic. The looks on their faces were a masterpiece of dawning horror. It was the collapse of their entire worldview. The man they'd laughed at for his thrift store suit was not just their equal, he was their conqueror. The weakness they'd perceived, his frugality, his humble life, had been the very strength that allowed him to wait, to plan, to leverage a family's honest windfall into this moment. Their laughter had been the first nail in their own coffin. James turned a violent red. "This is a joke. You can't." "It's all legal and binding, Mr. Kavanagh," the lawyer said coolly. Marco didn't smile in triumph. He looked at them with a profound, almost pitying seriousness. "You laughed at my suit," he said, the memory now a tool, not a wound. "That suit represented everything you never understood. It represented living within your means. It represented valuing people over appearances. It represented my family. And today, that family is buying yours out, not to destroy it, to save it from you." The first thing Marco did was call a meeting with all the employees. He stood in the workshop amid the smell of sawdust and varnish, Sophia by his side. "My name is Marco Bellini. Many of you know me as the bookkeeper. My father was a gardener. My mother feeds anyone who comes to her door. We are not Kavanaghs. We are here to build beautiful things fairly and to take care of the people who build them. He unveiled his plans, profit sharing, reviving apprentice programs for local youth, modernizing the website, but emphasizing handcrafted quality. He announced the new name, chosen after weeks of family debate around Nona's table, Bellini and Daughters. It honored Nono Salvatore's lineage and Chiara's budding eye for design. The change was seismic. Morale, which had been subterranean, soared. Craftsmen who had been treated as replaceable cogs were asked for their input. The business shed its pretentious, outdated models and began creating beautiful, solid, functional furniture for real homes. Sophia started a community program, Build a Bookshelf, teaching kids woodworking. Leo, after school, would sweep the workshop floor, feeling a sense of ownership he'd never felt anywhere. One Sunday, a year later, the family gathered in the now prosperous workshop for a picnic, not a dinner. The long workbenches were covered with checkered cloths, piled with Nona's food. Employees and their families were there, laughing, eating. Robert Kavanaugh happened to drive by. His own ventures had failed. He saw the open doors, the crowd, the vibrant life within the building that had once been his family's mausoleum. He saw Marco, not in a fancy suit, but in a work shirt and apron, helping Leo sand the edge of a table. He saw Sophia laughing with a group of children. He saw the old sign being carefully taken down, the new one, Bellini and Daughters, waiting to be raised. He didn't stop. He drove away, the ghost of his own laughter chasing him down the street. At the picnic, Marco stood and tapped his glass. The room quieted. "We have this because of my father's land, but we have made it into this because of my father's heart, because of my mother's endless table, because my wife believed in a thrift store suit." He looked at Leo, and because we learned that the most powerful leverage you can ever have is knowing exactly who you are and knowing that it is more than enough. He walked to a locked cabinet. From it, he drew out the garment bag. He unzipped it and held up the charcoal gray thrift store suit. "This is our real certificate of ownership," he said, his voice thick. "This is the suit that taught us that legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you build with your hands, with your heart, and with your family. It reminds us to never look down on anyone and to never, ever let anyone else's laughter make you forget the sound of your own truth." He hung the suit on a hook on the wall of the workshop in a place of honor. It was no longer armor, nor a symbol of scorn. It was a banner, a humble, mended, beautiful banner of where they came from and the quiet, delicious justice of where they had arrived, together, around a table that kept growing, always with room for one more, and always, always with a pinch more salt.